Sorry, could you repeat your name?
Denis On.
Yes, and what caused you to come to this debate? Do you have a particular interest or concern about population growth?
Yes, it's basically come about from having observed what's been happening in Melbourne for the past 10-15 years. One thing that struck me is that the rapid population growth is causing issues, and obviously the government has the potential to control growth through immigration. And I've come here I understand Kelvin's position, but I wanted to see what arguments Robert Doyle had and whether he had anything new to offer from the arguments that I've heard before.
He didn't appear to be acknowledging that it's actually population engineering by the state and federal governments. It's not some natural increase in Victoria.
Yes. Well, he did point out natural increase, which may be true, but the immigration also compounds onto that. So in terms of control, we can control who comes into the country, and that will help. The one thing I found different between the two arguments is both of them acknowledge that population is an issue. Kelvin proposed a solution which we could actually enact. Robert Doyle talked about smart growth, but we haven't actually seen any plans for smart growth, nor seen any benefits from so-called smart growth that's been put into place at the moment. We haven't got any freeways where it takes less time to get past than it did in the past. House prices aren't going down, Melbourne's not getting any less crowded. So in terms of solution, I thought only one person actually had a solid solution. And even if it's not a complete solution, at least it would help alleviate and take pressure off Melbourne.
What did you think of the proposal for a referendum on population growth?
I think we should have a referendum, and I can tell you exactly what the outcome will be. Any online poll shows that most Australians are in favour of reducing our net immigration intake.
Would you like to say anything else?
Yes, there was another point that Robert Doyle made about migration. My grandparents came here from Europe in the 1950s, my dad from Europe in 1977. My grandparents were able to offer my dad a better quality of life, and my dad was able to offer me a better quality of life. I'm concerned that I can't do that for my daughter. I can't possibly hope to afford the kind of house my dad was able to get, even though he was less educated than me. Nor could I support a family on one wage as he was able to. And it's not just me, but a lot of other people. I've had friends who have had to move overseas due to increasing house prices. So quality of life is deteriorating. And aside from the cafes and trees, what's really important is being able to secure a place for yourself, having a stable residence, having a stable society, and that's getting harder and harder. And definitely population growth is one of the biggest, not the only factor, but one of the biggest factors, and the one we should address and be honest about. And we need to be honest that it's not inevitable. We're doing it because we've got a property market that we need to prop up. There are developers who believe that they have to be able to sell every unit that they build, and we've got to bring in people to bring in that demand. It's a big Ponzi scheme. It's got nothing to do with prosperity. It's just to keep the Australian economy afloat because it's just so dependent upon residential real estate, and we've got nothing else.
You felt that the Lord Mayor was making more of a sales pitch than actually addressing the problem. He's a man with a job to do. What were some of the questions you would have liked to have asked him?
What specific plans does he have, or notions does he have in order to create smart growth in Victoria? He talked about it but never actually elucidated what that smart growth was, apart from developing along corridors. But we know that's not happening in the suburb that I live in, which isn't along a transport corridor. There's a lot of subdivision going on, and obviously the density is increasing. In order to have smart growth, we have to put a stop to that. What plans does the government have to stop subdivision? What plans do they have to stop urban sprawl? If it's in the property developer's interest to do that, how are they going to go against them and restrict development to these corridors? I don't see it workable, and I don't see any proposal to do such.
You mentioned that in the last election you talked to some Liberals about what plans they might have to provide smart growth and deal with population growth, which they advocate.
I think the Liberal philosophy is in a free market, and the government's responsibility is to not interfere with the market but to allow it to do its thing. I asked some members of the Liberal Party during the last election what they would do about housing affordability, and they essentially said nothing. It's not the government's job to tackle the issue. That's what the market is, and that's how it has to be. And I got the same sense from Robert Dahl today, that in terms of population growth, it's not the government's job to interfere. Reading between the lines as to what he was saying, that seemed to be the message that was coming across. It's inevitable, but it's only inevitable because it's my philosophy that it's not the government's position to actually put a cap in.
Or it's his job. That it's not the
It's his job.
government's
So essentially his job is to allow whatever happens, and whether it is for the benefit or for the detriment to the people, that's something the people have to learn to deal with.
Thank you very much.
Thank